Chef Lynn. Welcome to the Flavor Secrets Kitchen. Today with me is Joan Donnet from Essence on Main.
Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
Joan's been here before, so now she's a regular.
I'm getting to be a regular. It's awesome.
All right, today we're making vegetarian tortilla canneloni. This recipe is on the Mex America Foods website, how can you try and say that 3 times fast? MexAmericaFoods.com. We're going to make it just a little bit different than the recipe today. You can saute all these wonderful vegetables together as it says on the recipe, but we thought we should show you something a little bit different and add a little flavor by grilling some of the vegetables. We've got a lot of great vegetables here, and by the way, this is a great dish for your carnivore friends too, because the mushrooms give it a really hearty, meaty taste. You'll hardly miss the meat. We've got spinach, the shiitake mushrooms, summer squash, zucchini, leek, carrot, and even more things behind. You'll see as we put this together. So as I start chopping up these vegetables, which I'll talk to you about in a minute, let's talk about what Joan's got going on over here.
What I have over here is a really beautiful homemade tomato sauce that Lynn had actually canned herself. So Lynn, when you make your homemade tomato sauce, what are these beautiful components that you put in it? I see pepper, onion, what else?
You got it. Pepper, onion, a little bit of celery, all sauteed together with the tomatoes. And that's about it. No preservatives, etc., etc. How do you make your tomato sauce?
I pretty much do the same, but since we do garlic at home, I do a lot of garlic and I already put some of that in there for that extra kapow. What I see here is a little bit thinner than we traditionally would use for the recipe that you have called up for us, so I'm going to add a little bit of tomato paste to it as well, just to add a little bit of thickening. Give it a little bit of richer flavor, not too much, maybe 3 tablespoons in this pot here, and I think we started off with like 32 ounces of tomato sauce with what you had canned.
Yeah, probably. I don't know exactly. That doesn't matter.
It looked like a really nice full quart.
Yep.
And now that the farmers markets are up and going full swing, tomatoes should be coming up pretty soon, and I really would encourage you to can your own. That's the best way to have fresh food all year long. Bring your own goodies in from the outside, put them in some cans and put them up for the winter. So even in the winter you can have something really nice and fresh like this.
Yeah, and it's actually a little bit less expensive than trying to buy the can. Plus you know exactly what goes into it. You can tailor it to the taste of your family. So as you can see, I've just cut the summer squash into strips. They're about 1/4 of an inch wide. I've cut the zucchini into strips about 1/4 of an inch wide. And now what I'm going to do is just drizzle some extra virgin olive oil over these. And I'm going to take my pastry brush and just kind of brush it all along. Another vegetable you could put in here if you love it is eggplant. Eggplant is great in this dish. I don't want to have too much oil so that it splatters down into the grill, but I do want to have enough so that it's coated and won't burn. So I'll put just a little bit more on there. I'm going to add some salt and pepper to this.
Yes, you need that. Bring out a little bit of that extra moisture to kind of dry it out a bit, but also add that flavor that we're always looking for.
Right, the flavor. That's a little bit of pastry brush. When you use a black pastry brush especially, you always have to kind of look or people will think that's hair in your food.
But it's easier to use a black because if you used one that is lighter in color, it's harder to pick those out.
That's true.
I kind of like
you can find them, or hopefully you'll find them all.
That's right. If you don't, it's just an added treat for your guests.
Right, an added treat, right. They're always clean anyway.
That's true.
Always sanitized. Okay, so now I've got my vegetables here for Joan to start grilling.
All right.
How about if I move the salt and pepper over here, and then you can grill those and then move them over there.
Sounds perfect.
All right, got your tongs out?
I have my tongs. Lynn and I were trained to not really use tongs when you are barbecuing or grilling, just because it does have a tendency to tear and damage the food. I start off with them just because it's easier for me to put them on the grill this way. And then we will go to the spatula in terms of turning it. That way we'll be sure that we don't damage the food. And that holds true for meats and everything as well if you're grilling.
Okay, and while she's doing that, I'm just going to chop up some carrot here. I want to end up with about 1 cup of each one of the vegetables. So basically equal parts of the vegetables. So you probably noticed that I didn't use the entire zucchini. That was kind of a big one. You can always use bits of zucchini though, and as a side you can saute it, or what else can you do with zucchini? You can make some bread.
Yes, shredding it up is also a really good idea. It adds lots of moisture and texture to some of your baked goods as well. I know my mother always tried to hide those kind of good veggies in our baked goods and foods and muffins and
She tricked you?
banana bread.
Your mother?
Well, you know, she just tried to utilize lots of
Is that what
vitamins. I've been tricked. Yes. And I continue to do the same to my family as well.
Did she tell you there was a Santa Claus?
I believed in that for a very, very long time. I remember the day when I stopped.
Oh, what happened
But this
then?
might be a children's show.
Actually, it might, because you know my grandson just loves to watch cooking shows. He's 6 years old, and he really likes to watch the mixer go around. So some of those mixer videos that have 51,000 reviews, 10,000 of them are my grandson. Sits and watches that. I bet he puts that thing on 20 times a day. So of course I showed him the Chef Lynn videos, and now he watches those.
That's perfect, and he should. Your biggest fan.
Right. Okay, so now I've got some little pieces of carrot here that I'll just set aside because we'll saute those later. We can't grill these little bits of carrot, although we could have done the same thing. We could have grilled all the vegetables if we wanted to. Our last vegetable here is the leek, and this is a little bit different to clean. It looks like you should probably cut the leek right here, doesn't it? Because then you've got that this long stuff that you don't really eat.
Really
but if you
tender.
did that, you would miss about a half a cup of the leek. So the right way to do it is to take a really sharp knife and just use it like a machete, like this, and take off those harder parts of the leek. Then we can just push that aside and cut the root off. Now this one's got some funny pieces on the end of it, so I'll just take those off too. And then I can open this up like this and go back to the sink and wash it. Because the leek is like an onion, it grows in layers like that, and you want to make sure you wash out all of those layers before you chop them up. So
Very
what's going on
important.
with your grilling over there?
So far, so good. I got a little bit of grill marks on my veggies here. We're basically looking to kind of get the vegetables a little more tender than they are. And these are pretty tender vegetables anyway, but I think the grilling will add a little bit of extra smoky flavor. I've
Yep.
got some good
Great.
color going on.
And about how long are you leaving those on the grill?
You don't want to ignore them, but you don't really need to babysit them too much. We've discovered that if you let food sit and do its cooking, it will release its natural liquids. It will be easier to release from the grill itself, and you don't want to fuss with it too much. So I'm leaving these on for about 3 to 5 minutes per side, and then just doing a nice little gentle flip. And you'll get to know your grill really well in terms of where the hot spots are. I can see here I've got these a little bit more brown, so I'll move those off to the ends, and I'll move the things that aren't as brown toward the middle. So just get familiar with your grill. That way you're be more aware of the cooking range and the cooking temperatures within it itself.
Exactly, and that's pretty typical of a home grill. Mine is it's not hot, it's very cool here on this end, and it's very hot on this end in the middle, so you picked up on that right away.
But I like that because then when you're overcooking certain areas or you want to time things right, I think when we had a show together before, we talked about the timing of the meal, and I think it's
Right.
important to make sure that you're orchestrating everything and getting it all done when you need it done. So
Yeah,
if
that's
you need
true.
to set things off to the side to slow down the process, this
So-
kind of technique works.
So you can use your grill like your wok, just kind of push things
Yes.
off to the side.
Yes.
That's great. Now back to the leek. You can do the leek one of two ways. You can chop it up like I did here for the saute, or you can leave it in strips. Either way, it doesn't matter. So for today, I'm just going to finish this and chop this up really small
Now
so that
leeks
it'll
provide
blend
a
in.
really nice onion flavor, but not hot and overpowering, like not too
Right,
peppery.
they're very mild. To me, it's like sort of a cross between onion and garlic. I like
very
that.
nice.
All right, now let's take a look at the mushrooms over here. We can move the leek off to the side in another little dish here and take a look at the mushrooms. Notice that I have used shiitake mushrooms, and they're like a light rock,
Yeah, they're-
basically, when they're dried. But I actually purposely used dried mushrooms. It's the one time that you don't want to have fresh. The dried have so much more flavor. So what Joan did is she put this in really hot water, maybe 10 or 15 minutes ago, and you can see that they're all plumped up now, just like regular ones. So we just need to drain those, and then we'll chop them. All right, here come those mushrooms back. They look great.
They do.
And by the way, Joan reserved the mushroom juice because you can use that for lots of different things. First thing that comes to my mind is risotto. How about you?
Oh, that's a great idea.
Or put it in your mashed potatoes. Anything you want to give a little mushroom flavor to, you can use that juice, so don't throw it away. You can even reduce it and make it thicker so that you have more flavor.
Wow, Wow, with
Anything
make a
else?
sauce
Think of anything
base?
else?
Yeah, I hadn't considered that. I was just considering drinking it because it's really tasty.
Oh, drinking it, mushroom juice?
Yes,
You gotta be
mushrooms are
kidding me.
great for you. They're great
Put it in your
antioxidants.
smoothie. Put it in
Yes,
your shake.
a mushroom smoothie.
All right, so you can see here that I'm just kind of taking out these stems just because they have a little bit different texture. And once the stems are away, then I want to end up with about a cup of the mushrooms, just like I had just about a cup of everything else. So I'll just slice these. We'll saute them in a minute. Joan, how's your tomato sauce coming?
My tomato sauce looks really, really great. It actually had thickened up quite a bit, and it really wasn't on the stove for too much longer than what we had first talked about. So I've got it just about ready to serve.
Right, so that's that principle of reduction too.
Yes.
It was maybe a little bit thinner than she wanted to have and I wanted to have too when we started, but just having it on the fire that long has thickened it up enough to make it more like a salsa or something we want to use in the tortilla.
Right.
So what are you adding there?
I am adding some fresh chopped tomatoes. These were garden fresh, and of course they add a lot of bright color in addition to a little different texture. So the sauce itself will be just a little bit fresher tasting, I think, with those in there. So if you get an opportunity, like I said, if you're putting these sauces up during the fall and you have a fresh tomato that you've got access to somewhere during the winter, throw it in there for that little fresh texture.
Okay, next thing we want to chop up over here is some spinach. And I'm just grabbing handfuls of it and going through it. Only reason to do this is, why? I don't know. Just
Actually,
to make it a little bit smaller, but
does,
the
yeah.
whole thing will wilt anyway. You don't really have to chop it. But I feel like it distributes better through
I
the
agree.
dish
When
if
you're
I do chop
incorporating
it,
all the
so.
smaller sizes.
Yeah.
We talked before too about the fact that if you keep things in universal or like uniform sizes, then they will cook kind of more,
That's true. The leaves are kind of in uniform sizes, but anyway, to me it just looks better and works a little bit better if you do chop it for this purpose. Because we want these things to all mix up really nicely before we make our vegetarian tortilla canneloni.
Perfect.
All right, so there's the spinach and our last, you've got your
I
grilled
did
vegetables over
finish
there.
the vegetables. Those are ready to go. I just
Fabulous.
put them back in the pan that we had earlier, so those would be good for slicing and dicing when we need to put those in the
Good.
cannelloni.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about this garlic. Joan brought this garlic this morning from her garden, and actually I just decided I have never had really garden fresh garlic because I could hardly break this open. It's so hard.
It's very, very firm. And it's this is more of the elephant style because it's larger in
Right.
clove size. But I have found that over the years we've been growing garlic for several years on our property, and when you have it, of course, it has to be pulled out of the ground. This was pulled out of the ground a couple weeks ago, and it has all this lovely papery tissue on there. Once we dry it out in a really hot, dark location for a couple weeks, it's pretty good to go. But you can see that it actually is very juicy.
It is.
And it kind of...
It's almost like it's crispy like watercress.
Yes,
Almost.
very crispy, very juicy, kind of like, almost like an apple of sorts.
So would you eat it like an apple?
Again, health benefits of all
Keep the
kinds of
ghosts
healthy
away?
foods. Keep the ghosts away, the vampires at bay. But garlic is one of those
Wow.
like natural antioxidants. It's very healthy for you. It kills all kinds of germs. So clove a day keeps everybody away, not just the
A
doctor.
clove a day keeps everybody away. A clove of garlic a day. Right. Got it.
Yes.
Okay, so if that's your objective, go for it.
Yes. Would you like me to put some heat on here?
Yeah, let's
All right.
turn on our frying pan there.
Get that ready to
Get some
saute.
oil in that pan.
All right.
We'll do our saute really quickly with the rest of the vegetables.
All right. Just a
All right.
tablespoon or two of olive oil in the bottom there. And the lovely thing about cooking on gas, if you have an option, is that it heats up really well, really fast, and we're good to go. So
Okay.
I like to start with
Have
like
at
the firmest veggies first. So I will pick the carrot. So that one has
And there's a reason for that.
There is a reason for that. A little more heat for a longer period of time on the harder veggies, and then as you work your way to the softer veggies, they all will finish and all have the same kind of texture.
Right.
You're ready
so
to
if you
use
put
them.
your onions in there first, then you have to wait for your carrots to get done. You're going to have a chance they'll burn, et cetera, et cetera.
So-
All right, so let's get those carrots going. There's
All right.
a heat-proof spatula for you to
Yes,
saute with.
I love the heat-proof spatulas. Don't use just any spatula at home, kids. Make sure you use the heat-proof one.
Right, otherwise you'll melt your spatula in the pan.
And that'll
Don't
change-
ask us how we know this.
That's right. I am mum on that point. But we've seen lots of like curled ends when my kids have used the regular ones, the ends kind of curl.
Yeah.
And then it does leave a little bit of a strange taste in your...
Strange taste in your food?
That's
Okay.
not what you're going for.
I didn't need to know that. All right.
All right. All right, my carrots are pretty much finished. They have a little bit of color on them. So they actually, the color on the carrots actually brings out a little more sweetness to them and it makes them a little more tender. I'm going to add the leeks.
While she's doing that, I'm just chopping these into little strips. These gorgeous grilled vegetables, the zucchini. Well done on the grill, my dear.
Well done, thank you very much. I think this combination of veggies is fabulous for your cannelloni. Add the shiitakes.
You can use other kinds of mushrooms if you want, but the shiitakes have a really super great flavor, so I use them whenever I can, and I think that's an influence of my Japanese friends. You know who you are.
And I agree with you in terms of the meaty texture. I think that will, for people that are looking for something a little more substantial in a vegetarian dish, the shiitakes are a great addition.
Good. I do think, though, that if you leave those out, that's really not a big deal. I know there are a lot of people who don't think they like mushrooms. Maybe because they
just
haven't
may
tried
not
them.
know.
Or
That could be. All right.
a lot of people don't like the texture of mushrooms, but if that's the case, chop them up smaller.
I am going to put the garlic in right now, and I usually like to finish with the garlic because garlic is a little more sensitive than, say, onions or any of the other fresh kind of components that you might be using. It has a tendency it burns, and then once it gets a little dark in color, it ends up being a little more bitter. So I'm going to stir that in pretty quickly so it doesn't have too much time on the heat, but you do need heat on it so it incorporates with the others and kind of mellows out the flavors a little more. And the last thing we'll be adding to this glorious mix is the spinach. The spinach won't take long.
You can use this technique for cooking spinach just as a side, too. Cook it in a little vegetable broth or a little oil. All right, so while she's doing that, I'm assembling our ingredients to put together our tortilla cannelloni. So we've got our vegetables, we've got some chev cheese here, some goat cheese. If you don't like goat cheese, use a different kind. I've also got some of this 4-cheese Mexican, which I love, and I especially love the Sargento brand because it's grated really, really finely, and it's just perfectly all done. You can grate your own, of course, if you want to, but they've done it for you, so why not take advantage?
No, like you said, it makes it quicker and easier. And I think a lot of times, time is of the essence in the kitchen.
That's right.
We want to make sure we get things on the table when everybody is ready, so.
Okay, we've also got some tortillas here. I like the Mex America brand, obviously. We need to warm those a little bit before we put our dish together. So 4 at a time, I'm going to put them between some paper towels, pop over to the microwave, and microwave them for 30 or 40 seconds. So I'll do this twice. We'll be right back. Keep stirring, stirring, stirring.
All right, I will. As you can see, my heat is kind of medium here. What a lot of this does too when we're doing this saute is we're bringing a lot of the extra moisture out of the vegetables themselves, so they don't they don't sog out the tortillas too much. So the cannelloni still holds up really well and it's not soggy or mushy.
Right. No sogginess or mushiness.
No. It does affect the end result. No one wants a soggy or mushy anything, actually. I'll let those rest for a few more seconds. Give a quick stir to my tomato sauce, which is ready, by the way.
Speaking of soggy or mushy, we're going to put just a little bit of that tomato sauce inside our cannelloni, and then we'll put it a little bit over the top, but not much. I like to serve that on the side for the same reason. If you bake that in the oven with a lot of sauce on it, that's when you get those cannelloni or burritos or any dish like that where that has a lot of tortilla rolled in it. It's going to get really mushy if you have too much liquid in it.
Right.
So let's take this dish here. Now I've got my warm tortillas, and I'm going to build these right in the dish. We've also got some fresh basil back here.
Oh, that's right.
To put in. We don't want to forget that. Joan has a farm, and she actually grows her own basil. In this case, she grows it in these little pots. So we've got some real tiny, nice basil here that we can use straight off the plant, which is gorgeous.
You can actually grow, it can grow pretty easily, and I know you have a beautiful display of orchids here, but I know if you have the opportunity, you can easily grow herbs right on your windowsill too, all year round. So are you ready for
Okay,
some
so
of
now
this?
we want to make
Little
8
bit of
tortillas
this?
out of this. So
All
let's
right.
divide it in the pan so that
Oh.
they're all equal.
That's a great
1,
idea.
2, 3, 4. I once had a friend who served everybody for dinner, and then after dinner she came to me and she said, "Did you notice my husband and I didn't have any meat?" There was one person taking the plates out as soon as they were put together, and there was no meat left by the end. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's divide this a little bit more.
All right.
And we'll have 8.
Perfect.
So we need a spoon from back here. Forgot to get out a spoon.
There's a little
That's
bit of
okay.
assembly to go, and
All right, we'll put our gorgeous vegetable mix inside here.
it is pretty.
There we go. Don't burn yourself on the pan, Chef Lynn. And then we'll put the rest of some of this vegetable in here too, keeping in mind that I need to make 8 of these. Ugh, doesn't that look good? Then I want to put a
fabulous.
little bit of goat cheese in here. This is some fresh goat cheese that Joan picked up and brought this morning. It looks gorgeous.
Like you say,
Really
you could
tough.
use
The
other
hardest
cheese.
thing about doing this is not licking your fingers.
Especially
Push
on
this
camera. Yes.
Kind of toward the side. I'll take just a little bit of sauce here, just a little bit, because again, this will also allow you to make your cannelloni ahead if you don't put too much sauce in there.
And how
Make
far
it in the
ahead could you
morning.
make it?
You could make it in the morning.
Put it in
Now I'm
the
going to use my
fridge?
fingers here and kind of push this together and make a nice little roll here. Leave it cut side down on the side.
All right,
You know,
so
I'm
it
going to
stays
do this
closed.
8 times.
Perfect.
Our tortillas are all rolled up here now, and as you can see, I've only got 4 in a pan here. The reason for doing that is I wanted to have some space between each one. You know how when you make cannelloni or you make burritos, it always looks like kind of a glob at the end? If you separate them a little bit like this, then you can easily see each serving and make a really nice presentation at the end. So I've got 2 pans of 4, and we'll make them separately. As I said earlier, I'm going to put just a little bit of tomato sauce on this, and then I'm going to serve the tomato sauce separately, hot tomato sauce. So when you make your presentation, you can put your burrito on there, now I'm calling them burritos. You put your tortilla cannelloni on there, and then add some sauce for a really pretty garnish. All right, how does this open? We've got a beautiful little zipper lock there. And I'm going to put some cheese on the top of each one that will melt in the oven. All of the ingredients inside here are already cooked, so it doesn't have to go in the oven for long. Just enough to melt this great cheese.
And Lynn, I noticed you use the wheat tortillas, but
Right.
I also know that you have used this recipe before by using corn tortillas.
Right, and the great thing about the corn tortillas is then that makes this dish gluten-free. So feel free to use either, it doesn't matter. All right, I'm going to pop this in the oven now, and Joan's going to talk to you about our little extra bonus here, how to
side
make
dish.
Swiss chard.
I picked these fresh this morning. I braved the rain and I went out into the garden and got some fresh chard. Now these are what we would call rainbow chard. They grow with these beautiful color stalks. Typically Swiss chard is a white stalk. The rainbow comes in the pink and the kind of the chartreusey yellow color as well as an orange. And it's really easy to prepare these. Again, you probably don't want to eat the stem. It's a little woodier. It's just to support the lovely greens.
See how she's pulling those off the stalk?
Hold on to the stalk.
That's
and you
really
can-
the best way to get the leaves off.
Yeah, sometimes they're a little more tender, and if the more tender ones come off the stalk a little bit easier. It's one of those things when you see these at the market, look for the leaves that are kind of medium sized. Don't go with the big ones. They tend to be a little more firm, maybe a
Tougher.
little tougher. The tender ones cook up very easily, very quickly, and I think you'll find that they're a little more delightful in flavor.
Do you do anything with the stalks?
I put them in like a veggie stock if I'm
Veggie
making
stock.
a veggie stock.
Okay, sometimes I chop them up and saute them a little bit.
Oh.
And if you use a little chicken stock or
Okay.
vegetable stock,
Sure.
gives them a little flavor, put some nice spices in there.
So if you'd done this in advance, we could have actually put these in the cannelloni.
If I had, woulda,
But
coulda,
that-
shoulda, always,
No, but
right?
that's the beautiful thing about the recipe that you have is cooking with the vegetables that you enjoy cooking with, or the ones that you have on hand, and you just kind of infuse all of those together with flavors like we did. So,
Right. And improvise, always
Yes.
improvise. So I'm heating up a saute pan here for her to make her chard. Put a little bit of oil in it.
she's being very resourceful in using the pan that we had used earlier.
Right, it's okay to use the pan we used earlier because it's got little bits of leek and carrot in it. What else? Tiny little bit of garlic.
Yes, hidden garlic, I'm sure.
So little garlic. So they'll give this dish just a little bit more flavor.
Now these won't take long.
Want
Again,
these in there?
please.
Okay.
part of this experience is I do a little saute on the bottom and I flip them around. A little added salt, excuse my reach. The salt will help to release some of the extra moisture from the greens. It doesn't take very long. Once they get kind of bright green in color and they're a little limp, they're pretty much done. That's
Right,
when
just
you're
like
gonna,
spinach. This is
Yes.
also the exact same way you can cook spinach as a side if you like. Okay, so I'm getting ready to plate our cannelloni here. Our sauce is ready. I think we have everything we need. As soon as the chard is cooked, we're good to go.
All right.
So I'm just going to go grab a spatula.
I'll finish
And
stirring.
I think our cheese is probably melted in the oven, so at the same time I'll grab our dish.
All right. The chard looks done. I'll turn off the heat to that.
So how beautiful is that? Look at
That is really nice.
Isn't that pretty?
Very pretty.
Beautiful. So you could make that far in the morning and then just bake it off just before you want to eat it. That's what I like to do. I like to make everything I possibly can ahead.
Then it's easier
So
to
here
entertain.
we've got one of our, or let's give this person 2. So this recipe serves 4 if you want to serve 2, or 8 if you want to give each person 1. So we'll give them 2 today.
And we'll
we'll
do a-
use some of your really beautiful chard here on the side.
We'll do a nice little dressing of green. I always like green on the
Beautiful.
plate. I think green makes a
And how about
kind of a healthy
whenever
focus.
you want to garnish a dish, if you use something that's inside the dish, you don't have to worry about the flavor complementing it. We've got basil inside these cannellonis, so basil will be the perfect garnish, just to get a little bit of color on top there.
And I noticed that you're waiting till the end with basil, and I read that in the recipe as well.
Right. The reason is because the basil will wilt and turn brown. Good point.
This is very,
We'll
very
put just a
sensitive
little
and
bit
delicate.
more. The basil just adds a fabulous taste to this. And there we
Smells
go. Our dish is finished.
wonderful.
Something totally wonderful. And if you want to, you can put the tomato sauce, which I always do, either on top or you can put a little bit on the side so people can choose whether or not they want to add it. You can also make that tomato sauce as spicy as you want to by adding any kind of spice sauce. What's your favorite hot sauce?
Oh gosh, I have one that's locally made called Sansanetti's hot sauce, roasted red pepper hot sauce, made up in Holly, Michigan.
Oh,
It's
cool.
Fabulous. So
I haven't tried that one yet. I'll have to try that. But I have a whole variety of hot sauces in there. I like them all. Or you can simply add jalapeno pepper. You could also use the jalapeno pepper sliced really thin as the garnish. So
That'd
there
be
you go.
beautiful.
Anything else?
I think it's perfect. This is a little bit of an Italian spin because of the basil, but like you said, we could use
Anything.
anything. Any
This is
different
what we
kind
call
of cheese and herb.
fusion.
I love fusion.
All right, thanks for coming by. Please try this at home. I'm Chef Lynn. Enjoy.